And I'm going to be previewing tonight's NBA card for this Friday, March the 3rd. Very, very big card. Very, very big slate. Sorry about that. I was about to do the MMA betting breakdown. So I'm stuck on being a good card instead of a good slate. Nonetheless, because I'm doing this solo, again, I'm not going to go completely game by game. What I'm going to do is to give kind of an overall slate view and then kind of look at my early sheets runs, again, from a kind of a top-down perspective. You come at 6 o'clock for the live before lock stream. You'll get the updated projections, the updated takes, and things like that. But I still think it's part of the process to at least get an idea of what the slate might look like at this relatively early hour. So just gazing through just the way the slate sets up, I'm just kind of looking to see if there's any weird timing issues. Yeah, actually, so there's 7 to 7:30, a couple of 7:30s, a couple of 8s, and then there's a break of 2 hours before the late game. So I imagine it's going to be a 4-game late slate, which should be fun for those of you that are around. And if you'll see, these last 4 games, you have 230 plus point totals and relatively decent spreads. So that makes actually for kind of a fun late slate. And then look at this one, Utah OKC 231. Not to mention Portland Atlanta 240. This is going to be a fun. This is going to be a fun slate, I think. So let's take a look and let's see. Oh, let me share my screen first of all. I keep forgetting to do that. And by the way, I just did a crazy interview with Mike Sowers, which I'm going to put up. That's why I'm late. I was like an hour and 40 minutes on that thing. He is really an expert poker player from the day. Also made a lot of money in DFS. But he's involved in this virtual horse racing thing, which I threatened to learn about, but I never did. And he kind of walked me through it a little bit and walked me through how to open up an account and all that stuff. And just really just super sharp guy in general. I think you would all enjoy the interview. And I would never bring some scrub, you know what I mean, like on here. He's really just super duper sharp. And if it turns out that he wasn't sharp, I would have deleted it. But as I suspected, I mean, just I know I think you get a lot out of it. I certainly did. So that's actually processing right now. It's such a big file that it's just taking a while to process. Oh wait, there it is. Yeah, so let me just, before I do anything, let me just finish that tweet. Because I pre-tweeted that. Okay, let's do that. Boom. Okay, excellent. So now that's done. All right, so let's take a look at the sheets for today. We're just going to look at DraftKings, and we're gonna first look at it by sheets value score here, and you'll see that nobody's over 200, but it's good enough up here that you're getting Nikola Jokic at kind of the top. But the first thing I'll notice is that you're getting an insane projection out of Terry Rozier. Now again, this is early, but we're presuming that what's his name is still out, right? Yep. So it's funny with a slate that has all these late games, you get an insane play just kind of right out of the gate, which is interesting. And then as far as other spend ups, you have Dame and you have AD. Larry Markkanen's priced up to 9,600, but you see this drop here in value score from 181 to 165. That again, that doesn't mean you have to play this way, but I like to get a view of the slate in this way. So it looks like these 4 guys are going to be the dominating force. Like you want to get at least one of these 4. And the fact that Terry Rozier is 7,700, I mean, you can obviously do a lot with that. Then you also see Kelly Oubre from Charlotte there. So it looks as though this Charlotte game is rating to be quite the nuts. Who do they play? Oh, they play Orlando. So funny because they only have 111 point total, Charlotte. But I guess with LaMelo out, I guess that means a lot. Okay, next thing I want to look at is the way the points per dollar thing looks, because what that's going to determine is what type of slate it is. If you get like a whole bunch of guys over 6x or maybe over 7x, then you could probably play like multiple studs. And we already identified there's going to be 3 of them you might want to play. But if there's not that great value, then you probably end up having to do middling. And at least at this early look, you have Moritz Wagner, who is, the highest point per dollar projected play on the slate. It's about 7x. Then you have the Jalen Williams with an AY at 3,800. So overall, it looks to be just kind of like okay value. You have one guy who looks really, really good, but the exception of Jalen Williams, the rest are just kind of all right. Eric Gordon at 6x is fine. Chris Dunn at about 6x. So again, this is the way you look at it, and again, you want to look at this again at like 6 o'clock at night. After the projections update to again give you an idea of what type of slate you probably should be expecting. So again, you have some more of these values. So you have Moritz Wagner, Jalen Williams, Gordon, Chris Dunn, things like that. And we'll go back and we'll see. Okay, so we have Jokic, Lillard, and Davis. Now the next thing I'd like to analyze is what the top plays are using 2 different screens. Okay. The first thing we would do is we would sort by Sheets value score. And what we're looking for are the cheapest guys that rate kind of near the top. Okay, because what Sheets value score does is it overweights it gives a little more credit towards like just high scoring players and like high salaried players. So if you could crack into that top bunch with a low salary, it usually indicates a very, very strong play. And so what we're looking at is, again, Terry Rozier, we identified before. But then you have Kelly Oubre, who I mentioned. And then Josh Giddey at 7,900. That looks really good. Paul George, even Westbrook. And then you're down to like Taylor Horton Tucker. But so all of these plays look very, very strong. Okay. Especially Rozier and Oubre. And Giddey as well. Giddey looks like a very, very good play also. And Paul George, 8,300. That looks nice. Even Westbrook. So you have 2 guys from that Clipper game. That could be interesting, right? Now the next thing I want to look at is the reverse. I want to resort by point per dollar, and then what we're looking for are guys that are as expensive as you can get, because these are, again, this is the type of metric that usually favors the cheapo, the point per dollar metric. So if you can get a high salary guy or a high, basically a high salary guy up here, it's really, really strong. So that's why, once again, you're getting Terry Rozier, you're getting Kelly Oubre. Then Robert Williams and Clint Capella kind of poke into the mix. Okay. So those are the plays like that you're looking at. You're looking at Rozier, Oubre, from here we're again Capella and Robert Williams. And then again, back to this screen again, Rozier keeps showing up. Rozier, Oubre, Giddey, George. So these are like the main priorities that you want to look at. And then the next thing I would do before I even run a build using SaberSim is I want to see if any of those plays that we identify kind of come from the same game. So we looked at Charlotte and we noticed that Rozier and Oubre were from the same game and they're from the same team. So that looks pretty good. Now it would be nice if there was someone in Orlando on the other side to run back, but we don't have it. Let's look at the other guys we mentioned. One was Josh Giddey. And the interesting thing about Josh Giddey is that there's another guy in his team. That would be Jalen Williams, but not this Jalen Williams, the cheaper Jalen Williams. He showed up as one of the top point per dollar plays, right? The other one was, who was the top, Moritz Wagner. So, okay, so he could be the run back. Sorry, I didn't realize that he was from Orlando. So that's kind of an interesting way to start is you have 3 good plays that we kind of identified, and they're all kind of from the same game, okay? So you play Rozier, Oubre, and Wagner. And And that's, it's probably a pretty decent way to start. We already mentioned Giddey. We could put him in. One thing I would notice is that in that Utah game, we ran into a couple of more guys. Like Larry Markkinen is very close to being one of the best plays. And then we saw Taylor and Horton Tucker really close. So the fact that they're going to be in that same game as Giddey, I think you give them both kind of bumps. So we put a little bump on Taylor and Horton Tucker, and we could put a bump on Markkinen. And actually, let's be pure. Let's put him power forward. And so we have a pretty decently correlated lineup here. And Larry Markkinen's probably going to be pretty low owned at 9,600. I mean, I can't imagine people playing him at that price. So this is a kind of an interesting way to start, just by doing nothing other than kind of looking at these sheets and kind of eyeballing it. Let's look at some of these other games, though. Like, we didn't come up with anybody in the Minnesota Laker game or the Clipper-Sacramento game. We came up with Paul George, right, and Westbrook. So what I'd like to do is go back to this and see if maybe there's someone from the other team here. Well, actually, Davis was a good play. Forgot about that. Davis, Lillard, and Jokic. We got to put those studs in at some point. So Sabonis from the Sacramento side, that looks strong. So if you want to play Westbrook and George and run that back, for example, with and all this, by the way, because Kawhi Leonard is out. You play Paul George with Westbrook. Where do I want to put him? We'll put him in utility for now, just to hold him. Westbrook, and you run that back with Sabonis. Is he only center eligible? So that's the problem. Okay, but we can try that. Put Sabonis here. Look, you can't play everybody, right? So like if you did that, probably can't get away with playing all three of them. It leaves you only 4,900 a man, and then you'd have to fade both Rozier, you know what I mean, and Giddey probably. So that's kind of tough. But you could play one of them. I mean, you could play Paul George with Sabonis and probably get away with that. That's not that big of a deal. New Orleans and Golden State, I didn't see too much. Denver, we did have Jokic as looked like a strong play, but I didn't really see anything that rated that great on the other side. I mean, I don't know why, but Ja didn't really show up on my sheets today as a priority spend. Again, it was more Lillard, Davis, and Jokic. Oh, there's Morant down here. All right, it's close enough. I would consider this. I would consider a Morant, Jokic. But the problem with like builds like this today, again, is because those mid-range plays are so strong, like Rozier and Oubre and say Giddey, that you think you'll probably want to prioritize those rather than these top guys in a stars and scrubs type build. That would be my approach at least. So let's pull up SaberSim and see what kind of lineups we would get if we just put our projections up into there. We do not want that. We want NBA. And upload projections. Now I'm curious what we come up with. I imagine a whole bunch of Rozier. I mean, that's what I'm going to be. And probably a whole bunch of both, I would imagine, both Rozier and I'm going to say a whole bunch of Rozier, a whole bunch of, what's his name, Oubre, and a whole bunch of Moritz Wagner. So let's just see. We'll build a full 150, and we'll use the standard SaberSim sliders and see what we come up with. And we would get, yep, Rozier, Moritz Wagner. It did get me to this Utah thing, huh? Very interesting. So that Lauri Markkinen, we're believers, I guess, in this Lauri Markkinen at 9,600. And so what I'll probably do, I'll probably save some of these. What I'll do is I do like to save them kind of as dummy lineups, so I can reserve my spot in these tournaments. But that's pretty much it. No real questions, I guess, from the field. It's kind of tough to ask questions at this point because it's very, very early. But this is the process. You can go look at the sheets, look at what I think the slate's going to look like. make sample builds, and then just kind of put it away. And at 6 o'clock, we do the same thing, but now we're more focused on actually like figuring out what we're actually going to do. But this is what I'm expecting, like stuff like this to happen. Now, of course, 10 games, it's very likely something breaks that changes everything, but it doesn't change what the process is. So what we're going to do is we're gonna call this. We're going to come back. We'll probably do an NHL one in a little bit. We're doing our MMA breakdown show. It's a pretty busy day, actually. And I'm actually debuting my virtual horse race in a little while. Maybe I'll go live for that as well. But stay tuned. I'll be back probably